Hello traders, Rich here and welcome back to a new video. Since you guys liked my previous video about how to analyze any chart from scratch without using any indicators, just by using price action and market structure, I've decided to make another one, and this time on GBPCAD. Last time we analyzed CADJPY, and if you haven't watched it yet, I'll make sure to include the link in the description section below. And as you all know, this style can be applied on any instrument, whether it's a stock, commodity, index, crypto, or even Forex, as you can see. So hopefully the next time I'll try to analyze a stock or even an index. But for now, let's stick to GBPCAD. And as you guys know, as per our trading style, we will start with the weekly and daily time frame to know where we stand in the market. Are we overall bullish? Is the market overall bearish? Or we are currently stuck inside a range, right? So we know where we stand in the market, and then we'll zoom into our time frames to look for potential setups, potential entries, right? So if the market is in a bullish trend, we'll be looking for buy setups on the next impulse movement. And if the market is overall bearish, we'll be looking for sell setups. And of course, if it's stuck inside a range, we'll be looking for sell around here and buy around here until eventually price breaks the range. Then we'll be looking for buy in case of a breakout upward, as our resistance is now turned into support, and of course vice versa. If price breaks the support lower, then it would become resistance, and we'll be looking for sell setups, right? So let's get started with GBPCAD. Cheers. So as you can see, we start with the weekly time frame. First of all, we'll zoom out to the max, and then we'll zoom in to monitor current price action. But of course, as usual, even if we are starting with the weekly time frame, we'll start with the zoomed out. You always have to start from the big picture before zooming in. One mistake traders usually make is they start with the M30 and H1 time frame and then zoom out to higher time frames to look for extra confirmation. Well, that's the wrong way to approach trading, because if you have a valid buy setup on lower time frames, but you are looking for buy setups around resistance, and chances are that price will reverse from here. And usually trades wonder why they enter buy, price reverses immediately. That's why you always have to start with the big picture. And as we mentioned earlier, we have to know where we stand in the market. Are we overall bearish? As you can see here, we have a bearish market, right? As you can see, price clearly is making low lows and lower highs, right? So we are still in a bearish trend until, as you can see here, we are stuck inside a range. So it's a classic markdown, accumulation, or distribution. It depends if it's up or down, and we have a markup. Okay, so for now we are in a downtrend, as you can clearly see, and now here, as you can see, we are stuck inside this range. And for example, in this case, we would be looking for sell setups, right? So we can look for sell setups around here and so on. And of course, we can always make an offset. So the upper trend line would act as a non-horizontal resistance, and the lower trend line would be acting as a non-horizontal support, or what I consider an oversold area in this case. So we are in a bearish trend, then price breaks it upward, stuck inside a range, and then the markup then the markup started, and so on. Okay, so for now we are taking some examples just to know what the difference between every phase in the market. So we have to know where we are. Are we in a bearish trend? Are we stuck inside a range? Are we in a bullish trend or a bearish trend, and so on? So as you can see, for example, around here, would be looking for sell setups on lower time frames around our upper area, as it's acting as resistance, right? And of course, buy setups around the lower one as acting as support. And of course, when the price breaks it upward, we are now in a bullish trend, and we are looking for buy setups. Starting from here, the price broke this range, So we are in an uptrend, right? So as you can see, price is making higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows, and then now it's making lower lows and lower highs and so on. But for now, we know that GBPCAD is stuck inside this range, even though we know that the range is not small as it were before, right? But we know that this one is, we don't have a clear direction. We don't have a bullish trend like here, and we don't have a bearish trend like here. We have a range, as we don't have two consecutive high highs and high lows. Then we know that we are in an uptrend, right? As you can see, price is making, for example, here it's making equal lows. Here it made an equal a higher high. Then here it made a higher low, but it failed to make a higher high. Now, even if this one was around here, then we would be in an uptrend. But since we don't have two consecutive higher highs and higher lows, we know that we are stuck inside a range. And we know that when we are stuck inside a range, we have to identify our upper bound and our lower bound. But first, from a zoomed out picture, we have to identify big fat support and resistance, right? And then we'll zoom in around here to identify our upper bound and lower bound of this range. So if we zoom out, we have to identify our historical support and resistance. For example, here's a very obvious one. We can see that we have a very strong support and resistance here. And the reason why I'm calling it support and resistance, because here it's acting as resistance. Here price broke it upward, second as support. Here it broke it downward, acting as resistance, right? That's why we call it support and resistance. Because we all know if we have a resistance, the more touches that the resistance is having, right? The less likely that price would reject it again, because this resistance would be obvious for everyone, and everyone already sold around it. So the more touches this resistance is having, the less likely that it will reject, as the liquidity around it would be dropping, as many sell orders are already being filled, and no matter which type of traders you are, this one is no longer fresh. That's why our resistance would eventually be broken and it would become support, just like what's happening here. That's why we want to identify support and resistance, as this one would last longer. So for now, we know that we have a very strong support and resistance here. And obviously, first of all, let's make it in green. Here we go. And obviously, we do have a one here, right? As you can see, this one was acting as support, right? Then price broke it downward, now resistance, price broke it upward, so support, right? And now it's still acting as support. So for now, we have these two obvious support and resistance, and of course, we can even draw this one and so on. But for now, let's stick to the current price action. But here we go, since we already mentioned them. Here we go. As you clearly see, rejection here, and here we have a very, very strong one. Even this one is a very strong is a very strong supply area, right? As price made an aggressive movement downward from it. But for now, let's stick to this resistance and this support, as we are interested in the current price action. Now, since we already identified our key rejection levels, we have to zoom in to monitor current price action. Here we go. So now we know that we are inside this big range. And since we already drew our support and resistance, we know that here's our lower bound and here's our upper bound. And the reason why we drew it as zones, because support and resistance are not laser lines. So never ever draw it like this, right? Because price can undershoot it and you will miss the trade. For example, if you draw it like this, price can undershoot it and not touch it, or even price can overshoot it before going down. So always draw your support and resistance as zones on your chart. And for the support or resistance to be broken upward, price has to make an aggressive movement, an aggressive big bullish candles in this case, as price is breaking the resistance, to consider that the resistance is now acting as support, and of course vice versa for our support. For the support to be broken downward, price has to break it with many big bearish candles. Then and only then we know that our support is now acting as resistance, and we'll be looking for sell setups as price dives inside it again. But for now, we know that we are inside this floor, if you want to call it. So this one is our resistance and this one's our support. If price makes it till this floor, we know that this one is our resistance, this one is our floor, and so on, resistance and support. So here we go. Here's the piece of information that we already have from weekly time frame. Then we will zoom into daily time frame to see if we can add anything. Let's make it appear on daily time frame as well, as we can see it there. Here we go, visibility, day, and okay, and this one. We don't want these ones for now, as price is currently sitting around this area. Here we go. So we know that price is sitting around resistance, and of course, first of all, we have to start with the zoomed out picture. Here we go. I don't see that we can add anything. We just, if we zoom in, right, we can see that, I don't know if you see it, but here we go. Let me train you how to see pattern. So we know that this one is making lower highs, right, and higher lows, right? So this one is trading like this. So when I drew this projection, here we go. Let me draw it like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go, right? So you can know that you can already draw a trend line here and draw a trend line here, right? So here we go. We have a symmetrical triangle. Let's make it in brown. Here we go, and this one as well. Fantastic, right? So from weekly, we know that price is sitting around a resistance area, and from daily time frame, we know that this one is stuck inside a small range, smaller than the one from weekly time frame, and it's trading inside this huge symmetrical triangle because it's from daily time frame, right? And the swings are very huge. But we know that this one is making lower highs, right, and higher lows, forming like a symmetrical triangle. So from daily time frame, we know that price is sitting around this brown trend line, which acts obviously as a non-horizontal resistance, right? And the lower brown trend line would be acting as a non-horizontal support, right? And if you guys watched my previous video about how to draw trend line, we know that trend lines from daily and weekly time frames can be drawn by connecting only two swings. So starting from here, we can draw this upper brown trend line because we have a full swing here and full swing here, right? And starting from here, we can draw this brown trend line and we can start to look for buy setups here and of course sell setups here. Here we go. So from daily time frame, we know that price is sitting around resistance from weekly and around this brown trend line from daily time frame. So obviously we'll be looking for sell setups, right? So if you see someone online who's looking for buy setups around here, you know that he may be wrong. He may be, because we can never know. Price can still break this trend line upward and then the bullish trend would start. But for now, as long as price is still sitting around this area, or even if price breaks it upward, we will be looking for sell setups, as we do have a very, very strong resistance area from weekly time frame, right? So for now on GBPCAD, we're only interested in selling and sell setups. Even if price makes it upward, we're still looking for sell setups unless obviously price breaks the entire area upward with many big bullish candles from daily and weekly. Then and only then we know that our resistance is now acting as support and we'll be looking for buy setups on retest. For now, we are only interested in selling GBPCAD as long as it's sitting around this resistance and brown trend line. But we know from daily that since price is sitting around here, price might reverse from here. And price may not go upward just like what it did before going down, because the highs seems to be getting lower and lower, right? Here we go, and we are only interested in buying GBPCAD in two possible scenarios. The first one, if it breaks above this resistance aggressively. The second one is as price approaches our lower brown trend line. Then and only then we'll be looking for buy setups. And of course, obviously, we do have a support around here since price failed to break below it many times. So this one is acting as support and also acting as supply, as you can see here. Here we go, as price made an aggressive movement upward from here. So this area is a high probability zone to look for buy setups, because for now we do have three confluences or three reasons to look for buy setups, right? We do have a support, a horizontal support, as you can see in blue. We do have, here we go, and of course it's a zone, right? We always do it like a zone, but just to not to mess with the chart. Here we go. We do have a horizontal support. We do have a non-horizontal support. That's our second clue. And we do have this supply zone, which is this entire area, right? So this one is a very strong area around here to look for buy setups on lower time frames. And this one is a very strong area to look for setups because we already have a non-horizontal resistance and we have this huge resistance area from weekly time frame. So now we are done daily and weekly. We know what to look for. We're looking for setups, right? Now let's zoom into our time frames and look for potential sell opportunities. First of all, as usual, we start with the H4 time frame. Here we go. So from H4 time frame, we can see, here we go, let's make a quick example. Here we can, as you can see, the previous rejection, which was around here we go, around here, right? It's like, because starting from here, we have this swing and this swing, we can start to look for sell setups, and starting from here, we can start to look for buy setups, right? So let's make a quick example of what could have been done. Here we go, which was around here. As you can see, price was overall bullish as it's approaching the upper resistance and the upper brown trend line. As you can see, price is making higher highs and higher lows, right? Let me zoom in. You can clearly see that the bulls are in full control as the sellers are not able to close below the previous low, right? And obviously, price is making higher highs and higher lows. So we are in a bullish trend and you don't want to sell a bullish trend, right? And so many traders would only wait for a reversal candlestick pattern to sell as price approaches a resistance, right? Which is not a good idea. Always wait for extra confirmation, as first of all, the resistance is a zone, not a line. 1, 2, because a candlestick pattern is not enough to confirm a full reversal. It would confirm a swing reversal, right? So here we have a reversal pattern, we have a shooting star, we have a small minor reversal as price didn't break below the previous low yet. So it's a corrective movement. And here we have an engulfing pattern, a corrective movement, right? Here we have an engulfing pattern, corrective movement. Engulfing pattern, this one happens to be a full reversal, right? So always wait for extra confirmation. The candlestick patterns would give you would give you a projection for a couple of candles, not for a full reversal. Here we go. So we know that we are in an uptrend and we don't want to sell a bullish trend. So we always wait for extra confirmation that the sellers are taking over. The first one is an early alert, which would be what? Which would be if price fails to make a higher high, right? So price is making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Now price failed to make a higher high and instead made a lower high, which means that the buyers aren't strong enough as they were before to break the previous high, right? So here, we know around here, when this swing is almost complete, we know that the buyers are tired and let me delete this one. Yes, but the sellers aren't in full control yet. The buyers are exhausted, right? But the sellers are not in full control yet. So just like here, the buyers are tired, but the sellers are not in full control yet. For the sellers to take over, the bears has to close below the previous low. And obviously, higher low, higher low, higher low. Here we go. And here we go. Price failed to make a higher high, made a lower high. That's an early alert that a potential reversal might happen. And the reversal was confirmed around here when price broke below the previous low, right? And of course, obviously, we do have a head and shoulders pattern. Let's make it visible for you guys. Head, left shoulder, and right shoulder. Just give me a minute. Okay, I'm back. Right, so we have a head and shoulders pattern, and price broke the neckline downward, and we also have a trend line, as you can see. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Let me fix it. That's it. And we also have a 4 here, right? So we have a typical trend line with with at least 3 swings. We have a head and shoulders pattern, and here after a momentum candle close below our previous low, which is also our neckline and also our trend line break. Here we can say that we may have a full reversal. And of course, when the sell is activated, here we go, our stop loss would be just above the previous swing high, and we target, let me fix it. Here we go. Our entry was after a momentum candle close. We want the sellers to prove to us that they are strong enough to push below, not only push like here, for example. We didn't enter here as the sellers couldn't close below it, right? And the buyers took control at the end of the candle and closed above it. Here as well and here as well. So the first candle to show us a shift in momentum was around here, a full momentum candle closing below the previous low. So here's our entry, our stop loss just above the last swing high, and we target a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio to have an edge over the market, right? So that's our previous example. And of course, we do have a similar example in the case of as price approaches our lower. Here we go. And let's make this one quick. Price was making lower lows, lower highs, lower low, lower highs, right? Then price failed to make a lower low and instead made a higher low, right? Just the opposite of this one. Price failed to make a higher high, instead made a lower high, right? So here price failed to make a lower low, which means that a potential reversal might happen as the sellers aren't strong enough to make another big impulse movement and instead made a higher low. So for the buyers to take over, price has to break above the last swing high. As you can see, price failed to break above the previous swing high, right? Lower high, and here we go. Now we can say that we may have a full reversal after a momentum. Here we go. After a momentum candle close above the, the previous high, stop loss around here, and 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio. Here we go. And here we go. Right? So let's delete the previous trades and let's monitor price action now to know what to look for. So now we know that this one is stuck around our upper brown trend line and our upper resistance, right? And we are looking for some setup since price is sitting around resistance. So for now, what we can know is that we can draw this trend line. Here we go. And we can also, let me see if we can connect. Yes, we can. Here or here, it doesn't really matter. Here we go. And here we go. So on H4 time frame, we know that price is now forming a symmetrical triangle, but our lower trend line is not valid yet, right? Our upper one is already valid, 1, 2, and 3, but the lower one is not valid yet. And if price breaks it upward, we will not buy, even though this entry is valid, this trend line is valid, and we can buy on its break upward, but we will not buy since price is sitting around a resistance. Price can still go up, but we know that the bullish movement may not hold, as price is sitting around resistance, and price can still reject the resistance before going down. So we can have a movement like this before a crash, or price can still trade higher and higher. Hit your take profit for the buy, then we'll be looking for new setups to form and then sell. But since price is sitting around, let me fix this one. But since price is still, here we go, is sitting around resistance, we are only interested in selling GBPCAD. So our lower trend line is not valid yet, so we'll be waiting for a new swing to form around it to consider it valid, and then we will sell on its break downward. Let me make it in gray for our trigger swing as usual. Then we'll sell on its break downward, and of course when the sell is activated, our stop loss would be just above the last swing high. Here we go, and we'll target a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, which would be around our lower brown trend line, or of course as price approaches our lower support area. As mentioned from daily, we have a demand, we have horizontal support, and brown, a non-horizontal support. Around here, we'll be looking for buy setups. But let's take it step by step. For now, from H4 time frame, we are waiting for this setup to form. Let's make it only to appear on H4, because now we'll zoom into lower time frames and look for potential short-term sell opportunities. This one is a long-term sell opportunity, and since price is now sitting around our upper resistance, upper brown trend line, and upper red trend line, we'll be looking for short-term sell opportunities. Let me delete this one first. We don't want to see it here, only here. Here we go. We'll be looking for sell setups around here to catch this swing. Here we go. So for now, from H4 time frame, we'll be looking for a third swing to form around our lower trend line to consider it valid, and then sell on spec it downward. If we zoom into a 30 time frame, here we go. If we zoom out, we can see that this one is sitting around our upper brown trend line and upper red trend line, and so on and so on, and the green resistance. So we'll be looking for some setups. If we zoom in, we can see that this one is overall bullish from a short-term perspective, right? Let me fix it. Here we go. Higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Here we go. So you don't want to sell a bullish market. We always wait for extra confirmation and trigger. We want the sellers to prove to us that they are taking over. And how we do that, just like we did from the previous examples, we want the price to fail to make a higher high, right? Just like before. And then we'll enter on the last swing break downwards, right? Just like we did before. Here we go. And since we have a trend line, we'll be waiting for price to form a new swing around it like this. So price will make a lower high, and then our lower trend line would be valid, of course, and then we'll enter sell on its break downward. And as usual, when the sell is activated, our stop loss would be above the last swing high, and we target 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, which would be around our lower red our lower red trend line. In this case, since price is now far away from our resistance from daily and weekly, we can look for short-term buy setups around this area as we are speculating a third swing to form around our lower red trend line, right? And then sell on this break downward. So long story short, for now, we'll be looking for sell setups on lower time frames on M30 since price is sitting around a very strong resistance area. Let me delete this one and I'll keep these ones. Here we go to make it clearer. So this one, we have a setup from M30 time frame and we have this setup from H4 time frame. Let me remove these ones. We don't want to see them on H4. Right? Always make your chart clean, so that when you come back, let's say after a week, you can still know what to look for. Right? Always keep your charts clean. Let me remove it. Here we go, and of course this little thing. And as mentioned before, as price approaches our lower red trend line, we'll be looking for buy setups on lower time frames like M30, as we are speculating this movement before going down. But as price is sitting around here, we are only interested in selling GBPCAD, and we are only interested in buying GBPCAD from a long-term perspective around this support area. That's it for GBPCAD. And of course, as mentioned, hopefully we'll make another example on a stock or a commodity index next time, and I'll see you on the next video. Best of luck, and most importantly, enjoy it. Of course, try to make this top-down analysis on a demo account. Of course, practice, never ever follow anyone blindly. Always practice and see it by yourself before applying it on a real account. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one.